police are making no apologies after capsicum spray was blasted at a group of protesters inside Central Station when the Black Lives Matter rally descended into chaos. Earlier in the day, the protest was mostly peaceful. Only 3 people charged as tens of thousands marched through the CBD.
It's after dark and what started as a peaceful protest suddenly turns ugly. Hundreds shoulder to shoulder underground at Central Station. And as a few in the crowd charge at police, capsicum spray forces everyone to duck for cover. Water and milk used to ease the pain as the chaos continues. The acting police commissioner making no apologies.
I support the use of the capsicum spray and the way that the police responded in order to ensure that there was not further violence. The fact that there were a number of groups of individuals after the protest that chose to act unlawfully is disappointing to us.
One man was arrested. The 21-year-old later charged with offensive behaviour and resist police.
I can't relax.
Earlier in the day, another protester, 23-year-old Anaru Kara-Itianu, was tasered by police after allegedly fighting with a 15-year-old boy inside Town Hall Station. He was treated at St Vincent's Hospital and faced court today. In Brisbane, former Cronulla Sharks player Cruz Topai-Avea was seen pulling at a bull bar before jumping on a police car. At least 20,000 people turned out in Sydney and 3 people charged.
I'm glad that the police didn't end up sending in violent riot squad to break it up. But I think the responsibility for that lies with the thousands and thousands of ordinary Australians who were committed to peaceful solidarity with First Nations peoples.
Zara James, 9 News.
A stark reminder this morning of some of the dangers facing our reporters and camera crews as they bring us the news each day. In the last hour, our 9 Europe correspondent Ben Avery and his cameraman Kate Thompson attacked while live on air, reporting on the London protests.
A bit of a clash with us here at the moment, and it's been following us.
Ben is okay. He managed to run away and find some freedom there, and also security came in. This is around the steps, basically the steps of Parliament. Security managed to get there, and also a big police presence. But just 12 hours earlier, Europe correspondent Sophie Walsh was also attacked during a live report.
Well, yeah, they are. We're expecting thousands to turn out here to Hyde Park today in about 3 hours' time. The protests here in London so far have been relatively peaceful, but we have seen how quickly things can turn. Violence erupted on the streets of Paris. It was a demonstration that had been banned by police, but thousands turned out to protest the death of a 24-year-old black man in police custody in 2016. But it descended into... Sorry.
Sophie, you okay?
Sorry. I just...
Sophie?
Yeah, I just had someone come up and try and... Yeah.
You okay, Soph?
Sorry.
It's all right, Sophie.
Yeah, a man just came up and grabbed me.
It's okay.
He's okay, he's not armed. A man just came up and grabbed me, though. Just in this...
It's all right, Sophie.
Oh.
Dear. Thank you very much, Sophie.
Hang on, I've got to go.
That's okay.
Oh, it was so hard to hear that. You could actually really see a lot of what was happening there. And Sophie's cameraman, Jason Conduit, was quick to act, chasing the man down until police arrived and arrested him. And Sophie and Jason join us.
Knows the sound of their true scream until they're in a situation like that where they feel like it's a life or death scenario, which I did feel like in that moment.
Так ви ж його ж не захочете. Ви маєте працювати на благо України і благо свою громадянську позицію. Закликаємо народних депутатів. Ні в Україні. Я хочу
Too many black lives are being lost at the hands of the police, at the hands of people that have no right to be doing this to us, to be treating us this way. So we got to fight. We got to do our best to make sure that this can't happen, to be better for our future, to be better for our kids' future. It's not supposed to be like this. It can't be like this anymore. You know what I'm saying?
that looting, they just taking a great opportunity to spread our voice, to stop killing people, and using that for a chaotic action. If we can suppress the looting, then our voice can grow.
And here's that video, Jennifer. Oh my gosh, the speed at which that truck approached.
What started as a fight for justice has descended into chaos. On a Minnesota freeway, a tanker speeds directly toward a crowd of protesters, narrowly avoiding catastrophe. Protesters chase down the truck and swarm over the cabin. Eventually, the driver is dragged out and beaten by the mob. Before police arrive, dispersing the crowd and taking the driver into custody. 75 cities are living through these protests. Many are in flames. More than half have imposed curfews. In Atlanta, 2 officers have been fired for using excessive force, arresting 2 young African Americans. Body cam footage shows the woman screaming for help. In Michigan, every car on this street is on fire, windows smashed, tear gas deployed.
Tell your brothers and sisters, we will not win this fight with guns. It's not going to happen. We got to be peaceful.
Tear gas and rubber bullets too. In the beachside community of Santa Monica, 1,000 National Guard soldiers are patrolling LA streets, helping 20,000 police on the ground. With so much division, chaotic confrontations have been taking place across the country.
Well, this is the centre of Washington, D.C., the capital city of the world's most powerful nation. And as you can see, the people have just totally taken over. No matter what the police and other authorities do across America to try to stamp down on this protest movement, it seems that it keeps springing back up.
Protesters have defied Washington's first curfew. The National Guard deployed, but hundreds demonstrated as close to the White House as they could. One thing is bringing protesters together. People all over the country have started kneeling, a symbolic protest against police brutality. Now even police are joining in. George Floyd was the match that lit this explosion of violence. It's now taken a life of its own, and even further charges against the others involved in his death may not be enough to stop it. David Lipson, ABC News, Washington.
Susie Dixon's family might look like any other at today's protests, but for them this cause is deeply personal and dates back decades.
It's had a huge impact on our whole family when we lost our brother in custody in the old Adelaide jail in 1987.
This is Susie grieving the loss of her 19-year-old brother Kingsley more than 30 years ago. His death was reported as a suicide, but the family were suspicious of the circumstances.
While the 200 mourners crowded into St Paul's Church and spilled outside into the car park,
the family allowed media into the funeral to show Australia the real impacts of deaths in custody. Kingsley's mother, Alice, showed deep resolve in her moment of grief, using the opportunity to make a plea for action.
This is 45 deaths now. How many more do they want the Aboriginal people to wait for? 45 deaths, they want another 45 before they listen to us.
Just weeks after the funeral, the Royal Commission into Aboriginal Deaths in Custody was announced. 4 years later, when the final report was handed down, Alice Dixon was hopeful.
They never will go far enough, but this gives us, for the first time, white and black Australia, an agenda, an instrument